All right, folks, we will get to that story of the woman who voted 6 times for Barack Obama and was not only was she let out of prison, but the Justice Department wants nothing to do with prosecuting her. I guess it's not enough of a federal crime. We'll talk about that. I want to focus for a second on Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's been making the rounds. He's got a new book. And here he blames Catholic and Southern Baptist churches for the abuse of women around the world. Not radical Islam, not Sharia law, but Catholic and Southern Baptist churches. Watch this.
World, you also you tie in religion and how people have for centuries used selected texts, just like people in the South did 50, 60 years ago, to justify racial discrimination. Exactly. Now you talk about religious texts, selected texts being used to justify rape, slavery, honor killings, and one abuse after another against women.
All right, so he's set up with a softball by Joe Scarborough and Mika, like ready to go, and he does. Watch.
I happen to be a Christian, and Jesus Christ was a very wonderful leader who never discriminated in any word or action against women.
And women actually played a very important role in his ministry.
Extremely so. But with the writings of St. Paul, you can selectively take verses out of the Bible, and you can justify women not being able to be priests and so forth. So the Catholic Church and the Southern Baptist Convention and others quite often say, well, women are not qualified to have an equal role in the service of God as men. And of course, men all over the world take this as kind of a proof that they can abuse their wives or pay less pay, you know.
So men all over the world take Christian teachings or Catholic teachings and Southern Baptist Convention teachings, and they abuse women all over the world. They could beat their wives and pay them less. By the way, he went on to repeat the nonsensical myth of women make whatever it is. Now, I don't even remember anymore, 73 cents, 77 cents on the dollar. That nonsense that we've talked about here over and over and over again. It's nothing more than an average. It has nothing to do with real wages. But nonetheless, so radical Islam, Sharia law, cultures where women are beaten by their husbands and it's allowed, where if a woman is raped, she reports it, she gets stoned to death because she doesn't have 10 witnesses. All that's the Catholics' fault and the Southern Baptists' fault, I guess, according to Jimmy Carter. Now, I knew Jimmy Carter had a problem with Jews in Israel. I've known that for years and years and years. I didn't know he had a problem with Catholics and Southern Baptists. I don't know what his problem is, to be perfectly honest with you. But I do know that what he's saying here, that those teachings and those scriptures are used by men all over the world to justify treating their wives and their women like subhumans, is insane. All right, I want you to watch this as we lead into J. Christian Adams.
Judge Ruhlman maintained Richardson was in a position of trust and knowledge.
And for you to come into this courtroom and say that what you did basically is okay. Is like, just like you kicked those people in that bar to the ground, kicked them to submission. It's like kicking every soldier and everybody who's fought for this country on the ground, saying, you know what? I don't care about what you fought for. Because I'm Louise Richardson, and I'm going to do what I want.
That is one angry judge, and rightfully so. And joining us now to talk about what you just saw, and we'll also get to the Hobby Lobby case, the oral arguments heard today at the U.S. Supreme Court. J. Christian Adams, former DOJ election lawyer and whistleblower who exposed the racial bias in Eric Holder's Attorney General's office, is with us. Always great to talk to you, sir.
And always great to be here.
Well, I appreciate that. All right, what we just heard, I'm not privy to courtroom proceedings all that often, but even I know that was an angry judge reading the riot act to Louise Richardson, who was convicted for voting 6 times for President Obama. Yet, of course, the left tells us there is no such thing as voter fraud, and you can never find it.
Well, anybody who says there's no such thing as voter fraud is a liar, and all you have to do is play that clip you just played of an unrepentant vote fraudster. Meloise Richardson voted for President Obama 6 times in the state of Ohio in the 2012 election, and she said so on camera to the CBS affiliate. So that judge sentenced her to years in prison, and she was sprung loose just a few weeks ago for alleged bipolar disorder. A Soros-funded law firm represented her and got her out of jail.
You can't make this stuff up. And your piece that I read at Breitbart.com talking about how no Justice Department charges for this violation.
Yeah, don't forget, when you vote 6 times for president, you're probably breaking state law, but you're also breaking federal law. Federal law has a prohibition against multiple presidential votes. It's a felony. What she did could send her to Leavenworth for 25 years. It's 5 years for every offense. 5 times 5 is 25. So, but guess what? You only send vote fraudsters to prison when you have an attorney general who cares about vote fraud. And this is an attorney general who actually meets with clowns like Al Sharpton to help develop election policy at the Justice Department. And not surprisingly, Meloise Richardson is walking around free today.
To what do you attribute it to? No one could get inside Eric Holder's mind, but you worked in Eric Holder's Justice Department. You've written story after story, told tale after tale, and bravo for everything you've done. I think the work you have done, and I'm not sucking up to you. I've told you this every time you've been on, is so important. And if we had a fair media, we would have a different attorney general by now. But that said, what is the motivation? I mean, we could go back to the Black Panther case. We could look at the fact that they just are interested in prosecuting victims of civil rights abuses when they're black victims. But is it because she's black? Is it because of the liberal mantra that there is no voter fraud? I mean, what's the rationale for the Justice Department to turn a blind eye here, do you believe?
Yes, it's a toxic mix of a couple of the things you mentioned. It is, in fact, it breaks up the voter fraud narrative, but there's something much more dangerous going on, and that is this rotted view, this corrupt attitude that is beginning to gain total acceptance in some corners of government and academia that accepts criminality in American elections in the name of payback time. Meloise Richardson was hailed at a rally by Al Sharpton just last week at a voting rights rally. Al Sharpton literally embraced her as a hero.
I think we have the pictures of that if we get a chance to put up those still pictures from before. Yeah, we're going to get some of those. Go ahead.
And so understand that there is a growing toxic movement in some corners of the country that are perfectly willing to accept criminal acts in the elections in furtherance of a broader progressive agenda. You saw that play out in Philadelphia with the new Black Panthers. I wrote an entire book about it called Injustice, where black Democrats in Mississippi, I had to take them to federal court when I worked at the Justice Department because of their criminal discrimination against white voters. I mean, this is something that is beginning to occur in urban areas, in backwaters around the country, out of the sight of the mainstream media, places where there's usually no poll observers. Just like in Philadelphia, that's why the Black Panthers were there, was to intimidate observers. And so, it's a tragic development that the left will try to call you crazy if you talk about it, but they'll ignore all the evidence, all the Meloise Richardsons, all the new Black Panthers, all the Ike Browns. These are the people engaging this behavior, and it's becoming very problematic.
There was a case, just very quickly, a federal judge last week upheld laws in Arizona and Kansas that you have to show ID. And there's a new Rasmussen poll out. 78% of Americans believe that you should have to show ID before you get to register to vote. I mean, it's common sense, and I don't know why it's not 100%, but it flies in the face of what the Al Sharptons and the others would have you believe, that it's this racism.
Yeah, and citizenship verification. That was the heart of that Kansas case. That Kansas is trying to ensure only citizens are registering to vote. The amazing part, Steve, is that groups like the ACLU and the People for the American Way and all of these Soros-funded left-wing groups, this huge establishment, continue to fight against election integrity measures like citizenship verification.
All right, let me move on to Hobby Lobby. I wasn't in the court, neither were you, I don't believe. But from all indications, you got the usual four, the three women, of course, the liberal women on one side. And in the middle, you got Justice Kennedy, who went both ways in his questioning by asking what rights would women have if their employers ordered them to wear burqas, for instance. And on the other hand, 90 minutes later in the 90-minute argument, he seemed troubled by the logic of how the government would apply, that the government's mandate here with respect to birth control could also apply to abortion. He said, would you force employers to provide abortion? So I don't know. How do you predict which way Kennedy's going to go? It looks like he's going to decide it.
Look, Steve, let me throw a curveball at you at this. Kennedy is a Catholic. There's now a Catholic majority on the Supreme Court for the very first time. Granted, Sotomayor doesn't always behave like one, but there is a Catholic majority. Kennedy, a lot of his jurisprudence has a Catholic thread to it, and I think that that is going to be a deciding factor here because he's right. What if the government said we all need to eat pork as part of the health care plan? How does that affect Jews and Muslims? Or we all need to drink alcohol to keep our cholesterol down, we drink red wine. The point is the government should not be in the business of doing things to our body that especially offends religious freedom.
And you're not troubled by, and again, it's all reading tea leaves, which, as you know better than I, when it comes to this, it's dangerous to do. But you're not bothered by his first question, which said, what rights would women have if their employers ordered them to wear burqas? That doesn't seem to go the other way.
Well, no, because I think he's teasing out the distinction.
Gotcha.
That there is in fact a right of employers to have a uniform or have workplace rules. So I think that's probably not as big of a deal as you might think.
Gotcha. All right, listen, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, and we look forward to the next time. Thank you very much for your time.
Anytime. Bye-bye.
Take care. That's J. Christian Adams, ladies and gentlemen. A real hero of mine. From the time before he wrote the book, obviously, his testimony before Congress, we're talking about years ago, he was a career Justice Department official, couldn't take the racism, the reverse racism that he, as he put it, in the Justice Department, in the Civil Rights Division, where he said they were only interested, under Eric Holder, in going after whites or defending black victims of civil rights violations. Dropped the charges against the Black Panther with the club at the polling place in Philadelphia. That wasn't a big deal. All right, folks, we're coming back. We got the panel up next right here. Don't miss it. It's all straight ahead on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television. Stay where you are.
The Steve Malzberg